France is a society that is very risk-averse. So when we pick our populists, we want these populists to give us guarantees that are much more the guarantees that an actuary would like than the guarantees you have a sort of fire and brimstone. And to a large extent, the vote for Emmanuel Macron is a populist vote. It was 5 years ago. It definitely was. The whole thing was get the incumbents out, which is known in French as dégagisme. Let's get rid of these people. And Macron was the safe opportunity to do that because he was at the same time, en même temps, which was his campaign slogan. He was different from these people. He was younger. They didn't like him. He was neither left nor right, but he was also a technocrat. He spoke the same language, and so there was this promise of competence. So if you've got someone who annoys everyone and promises to be competent, you vote for that person, and that's what happened 5 years ago.
Does the fact that young people, 2 days ago, overwhelmingly, I think we can say, the youngest age group overwhelmingly chose Le Pen over Macron, what does that say about the future for populism in places like France?
It's very interesting that people went wheelchair wiper from Mélenchon to Marine Le Pen, because it shows that it was a protest vote. And the thing that was really striking was in Guadeloupe, Martinique, Saint-Barthélemy, the French West Indies, because Marine Le Pen has been painted as a horrible fascist and racist, which her father was, but she's not. She's a classic populist. And she went to all those places and she said, I understand that your life is difficult, that things are expensive, that there aren't enough jobs, and that Paris is not doing things for you. And Mélenchon was still, he was more fun as a left-wing vote, but they voted 60-70% for her in the islands. And that in itself is a good illustration that the horseshoe there meets essentially because we write about politics, and the people who sort of are in politics, they see a great difference, but the voters don't think ideologically so much. I'm old enough to remember what it was like when the Communist Party in France was polling over 1/4 of the vote. That was unbelievably ideological, but there was a cultivation of that ideology in everyday life. You entered a kind of a sect. That's completely over, and they switch from one to the other. But in terms of a populist vote, it really, if somebody cleverer than Marine Le Pen had the same attraction and name than she had, she could have won. But it's really, it boils down then to personalities as well. As what do you offer? And take Boris Johnson, who's got large elements of the populist. There's something that one half of the country doesn't like about him, but which made other people vote for him. And it's the personality. Orbán is very clever. He connects with the Hungarians. They recognize themselves in him. There was a massive coalition in Hungary from Jobbik, which was 3 days ago, well, a year ago, was a truly fascist party, and then said, we're going to join with the former socialists and everything because we need to fight the monster, and they lost. And depending on how, and look at Zelensky in Ukraine. Zelensky had approval ratings of 23% before the war, and in Ukraine, and I have friends in Ukraine, journalists, and they all said, no, the war is not going to happen. We're sitting here in Kiev on 23rd of February, and we're having a nice, in a mocha bar, and nothing is going to happen to us. And of course, it did that overnight that night. The personality of Zelensky, who was offered by the Americans to be exfiltrated, and he famously said, I don't need a taxi, I need ammunition. That was really, I don't need a ride in English, I need ammunition. That was really impressive. So personalities come back, and either you've got gifted politicians, and the gifted politician sort of gives a shape to populism. But I'm not Marxist enough, even though I was a very long time ago, to think that it's only the sort of the large trends of the economy, the market, and social forces.